The BMW S1000XR Sport, is it a tourer, a sports bike, or a bit of both? And is it the best bike in the increasingly popular sports tourer category?
So I feel like the first thing in thumbs up has to be that engine, because my God, it was so smooth. It was so powerful. I loved it. How about you guys?
Yeah, I love the engine. It is incredibly smooth and raw but refined. So it's a 999cc oil and water cooled inline four that puts out 170 horsepower at 11,000 RPM and 114 newton meters of torque at 9,250 RPM.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. It's an inline four that's usable in the lower RPMs as much as it is in the higher RPMs. It feels great, and as you both said, super refined. Great piece of engineering.
What about the exhaust sound?
I like it.
Actually, one thing I really did love is, I don't know if you guys noticed it, in second gear and third, it had like this two-tone whistle sound that it makes, and it's beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah, for me it was the induction roar. So you wrap on at a set, you just quick shift up second, third, fourth. The induction sound is incredible.
Yeah.
And I really like the sound of the acro that comes with it.
Yeah, this is the first dealer optioned acro that I've ever been a fan of.
Yeah. I'd probably agree with you
Yeah,
there.
me too.
So with the suspension, I thought the suspension was great. There's a 41mm upside down telescopic fork that is electronic self-adjusting with the dynamic ESA, which just like you've got dynamic and you've got road.
Yeah.
And like the suspension, I left it in dynamic pretty much the whole time.
Yes.
And I like it. It's a bit off-putting to have fully adjustable suspension that just has two presets, but in saying that, they are very different and they both work really well.
I loved the way it handled, but it also, the ride position for me was pretty good. Yeah, no, really, really good.
Yeah, particularly with those sport optioned foot pegs, which are adjustable and they look awesome. They're like nice. Are they CNC finished? They look like
little billet pieces there. They're nice and blingy. They're good.
So there's a heap of electronics on this bike. It's keyless everything, including the petrol tank, which is big thumbs up from us. TFT, which is like very big, bright, easy to read.
BMW do the best TFTs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I find for someone, like, it's a nice big screen, but the text on it is not tiny.
Yeah.
Really easy to see when you're way over the speed limit.
Yeah.
And their multi-menu layout is very intelligent and very easy to use.
Yes.
So I liked that sport screen.
Yep.
And then you just have your regular screen. Even when you're looking through the menu, big, obvious lettering and icons to match. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And also just the actual moving of the buttons. You've got the big wheel to move through the menu.
Now, I normally complain about how much stuff bikes have on the clusters.
Yeah.
But on this bike, it makes a lot of sense. The mode and the heated grips being on the right side really clears it up on the left. So it actually makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really look very daunting, which is normally the biggest failing of these very modern bikes. So yeah, big thumbs up from me.
There's also cruise control, which is not radar assisted, but it still works very well, easy to use.
Cruise control's great, yeah.
One thing I loved about it was that hill start control, which confused the crap out of me the first time. Well, the first few times, because I would just come to a stop and I thought my foot was slipping off the pedal, but it was actually that it was clicking down into the hill start.
Yeah.
But I didn't even notice it because you just start wrapping on the power and you just take off. There was no obvious, oh, I'm stuck in a hill start control, got to rev out of it.
Agreed.
So that got me the first time as well. Remember that first time I jumped on it? We're literally on a flat car park and I've got stall. As soon as I knew it was automatically going on, no dramas at all. So I loved it. Did you? But you don't normally like the hill start control. This one was okay.
They nailed it.
Yeah.
They got it. It's very eager to turn on. Like they're obviously very impressed with themselves, BMW. So as soon as you stop on a hill, it's on.
Yeah.
Also, heated grips.
They're pretty hot, actually.
You have them on 3 and it's bloody hot.
It's real hot. Like, yeah, I had it on 1 and it was hot, but in a good way. I loved it.
Yeah, it is late spring, Teagues. So there's one key for all the panniers, which is great. Quick shifter was excellent.
Oh, so good.
smooth.
Now, dynamic traction control, stability control, and ABS Pro, all the electronic stuff that is there, but it's not really invasive. It just sort of works in the background.
Yeah. On the topic of ABS, let's talk about brakes. And the brakes are amazing. They've got great linear travel through the front, lots of control and modulation through the rear. I don't find the rear to be super bitey, which you normally find with these heavier bikes. Very easy to filter on. I mean, it's got pannier bags, but
Yeah.
it's controllable. Stops on a dime. It's great. I was leaving my braking really late. Trail brakes well. Yeah.
I found the back brake probably lacked a little bit of bite.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I thought the same. But it was kind of one of those things where if you needed to do sharp braking, you're going to be using both anyway. So you could do that smooth braking with your rear brakes, and then if you needed to brake more suddenly, you just use those front as well.
But you're probably right. Having that sort of the rear brake not having as much bite did make lane filtering when you needed that. It was didn't grab on, so that was pretty good.
Okay, now we have to talk about the handling of this bike because it was one of my favorite things about it. It is so intuitively in touch with any movement of the handlebars, but not in like a really sharp way. Or I guess it is kind of sharp, not in a bad way though. It's just such good handling.
Yeah.
So I mean that comes down to the weight of it.
Yeah.
So the weight is about 227 kilos, not overly heavy.
Pretty light for a big bike.
It is a big bike.
Yeah.
The only time I found it handled not as I would like was when I had a pillion on the back. And it was not, when we're cruising along, no dramas, it was slow speed. And I did find, particularly the weight of the bike with a pillion on the back, felt it a bit top heavy for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, handling in its element on country roads and faster sort of roads, mate, the handling was superb. Yeah, really, really enjoyed it. Big 20-litre fuel tank, and I got pretty good range out of it.
Yeah, same here.
Didn't have to fill it up once.
Some other fun stuff to mention with this bike that I really liked. There's two things I want to talk about. First is the windscreen. Rather than having this ridiculous electronic adjustable windscreen, you just flick a lever. That's it. It just makes sense. I love it. Second thing is the pannier bags. Unlike what you would expect from BMW, you don't have to put a key code in and then get your retina scanned and then call the German head office and tell them what your full name and social security number is. No. You just press a button and they open. And your helmet just fits in. And there's one strap and you just strap it in and the helmet's in. Job done. And if you want to take the pannier bags off, you just press one button and pull them off. It just works so well.
I will say about these as well, having that top box, it was the most useful thing I've ever had. Like, just being able to go out somewhere, chuck your helmet in, not have to carry it around with you everywhere was so nice. And I know this is not a unique thing for any bike to have, but God, it really made me want to get one for my bike, even though they look pretty ugly, right? Can we say that?
It's hard to make them look good.
It's hard to look good. To be fair, I think of top boxes, the one on this one does look probably as good as it can.
None of them look good,
Yeah.
but they are really, really functional.
Finally, there's the price. Now, the S1000XR starts at around 28 grand, but we had the sport variant and that bumps it basically 10 grand. The final price is about 38k. So you get a couple of optional extras. If you really want to know, check the BMW website because the price varies depending on where you live.
Okay, so the first thing for me in thumbs down is the looks. Now, when you compare it to the other bike we had at the same time, the Ducati Multistrada Pikes Peak, which I think looks superb.
Yeah.
This one, it's very German. It's a bit angular.
It's very BMW.
Yeah.
Distinctly so.
Yeah. And like it looks okay, but for me, just a little bit angular. I much prefer the smoother lines on the Multistrada.
They both kind of look like birds, I found. They have like
So
a
we've
big
had fish,
front.
now we've got birds.
They do look like birds.
What sort of bird?
Like an eagle. Like it's got a big beak and big side wings. I like the look of it. I kind of like it. It looks weird, and weird is good.
I'm just going to go right in the middle and say I'm impartial to the looks.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of colours, there's Gravity Blue Metallic, which I think is boring.
Which is actually my favourite of the colours.
Same.
Boring.
Same.
Black Storm Metallic 2, which is very boring.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, there you go. And there's the light white M Motorsport version, which I actually think is okay, but you do pay for that extra colourway.
You might as well get the M Sport logo tattooed on your forehead, seriously.
One of the other thumbs down for me, and seriously, BMW, sweet Jesus, let it go. The ugly nav mount. You know, you talk about heritage, and BMW, they're known for their boxers, and they went, they've been making that boxer for 100 years.
Yep.
It feels like they've had this bloody ugly nav mount on their bikes for 100 years as well. Seriously, let it go. It's like Lucas's mullet. It's got to go.
Well, Ross, we might have something happening when we get to 20,000 subscribers. No, seriously, I completely agree.
Oh, man.
And it has a map on the TFT, right?
Which,
Yeah.
okay, but the problem there is the BMW app is also ordinary.
Yeah.
So that's why I can understand having the Nav 6 mount there, because the Nav 6 is really good.
Yeah.
Just make it an option.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it sitting there if I'm not going to have if I don't have a Nav 6. And to be honest, I just put my Beeline on the buzz.
So I'm just going to say it, with the panniers, I took them off immediately. I left the top box on, but just in terms of getting around commuting in the city, there's no way in hell I was leaving those panniers on. It makes it so wide. There's no way you're filtering through any traffic with those on.
I filtered with the panniers on, much to Ross's distress.
You did. I was like, Jesus, you know how close that is?
Like that.
And I refused to do any filtering with them on, so there you go. So there was another thing that I found, which was that the foot peg, it felt really short. Like,
Yeah.
that it felt like my foot was going to fall off it, particularly the first few times I rode it until I was kind of used to it.
Yeah, no, I actually agree.
Okay.
You kind of really need to pull in. Yeah, fine, on a sports bike, I get it. But this is a bike you should just jump on and ride.
It's got an absolutely useless phone holder in the tank.
Oh, you mean the Tic Tac holder?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what you can fit in there.
I don't know what you're fitting in that thing, because
Yeah.
there's not going. Certainly, a phone's not going in there.
No.
That's if it is a phone holder. I don't even know what it is.
I reckon you would only use it maybe to put the keys in there
Yeah.
to sit there while you're riding. Look, I don't know if this was just me because I'm doing lower speeds, but I also did find that it was getting quite hot, particularly around your legs.
Yeah.
It's quite a warm bike to be riding.
The biggest opening with the fairing is at the back where your leg is. So you could feel this jet stream of hot air gushing out into your legs when
Yep.
you're stationary. But the upside is all the ventilation on the fairings pushes all the hot air out as soon as you're moving. So in traffic, it's kind of a compromise, but as soon as you're moving, it just sucks all the hot air straight out, and it's quite nice.
Yeah. So most of the riding I did was, country roads in the Central West. No issue at all.
This bike is kind of weird because it's almost perfect, I'd say. The quick shift is perfect, the power's perfect, it's usable, it's a bit wide, it's a bit tall, but I mean, it's a sports tourer, what are you going to do? But is it soulful? But I loved it.
Yeah.
It's a precise piece of engineering, and you just have to put up with that. It's not going to break down, it's not going to shoot flames, it's not going to swear at the mailman. I don't know, it just does exactly what it's designed to do, and it does it really, really well. It's easy to ride, it's easy to have fun on. You can use more than 2 gears, which is a huge plus for 1,000. We all know when you
Yep.
ride a sporty 1,000, you only get to use second or lose your license. I really liked it. I big grin factor. It was a great bike. Am I scoring it now? 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
9 out of
Wow.
10.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So a 9 from Lucas. Where are you going with it?
Look, it's a tricky one. So I actually met a guy at Breakfast Talk, and he mentioned that he was actually picking up this bike later that afternoon and asked if I would recommend it. And I said 100%. It is a beautiful bike, and if you're not using it as a commuter bike, just for inner city, I think it's an amazing bike. The quick shifter is incredible. I love the engine, the power, the seating position. It's comfy, it sounds amazing, and I do have a grin on my face every time I rode this bike. I just wouldn't get one because I wouldn't be using it as a commuter bike in the city. It's a little bit too hot, it's a little bit too heavy, it's a little bit too big for me. So look, I love it. I would recommend it to people. Would I get it? No. I'd probably give it an 8.5.
So first up, I love the level of comfort on this bike, and the ergonomics really lend itself to being a really good long distance tourer. So I got to rip around the central western New South Wales once again. This time I went out via the Bellsliner Road out to Bathurst and Millthorpe for the Millthorpe Bike Show, which I got to judge, which was great fun. So it was an awesome day out there, and next year, if you're around late October, it's really well worth checking out. Couple of highlights from the show. My mate Steve, who we did a story on, he had this beautiful 3-wheeler. It was a Triumph Bonneville engine in a Harley frame. Basically built it, machined all the parts himself. I'm in awe of guys like Steve who can do that. Builds the engine, but then has the design skills to actually, he painted it and sprayed it and did all the design himself as well, which is beautiful. There's a guy named Phil who watches the channel. He won Best Japanese Bike with his Suzuki GS 1000G. So well done, Phil. Old school sports bike went to a beautiful Ducati Mike Harwood replica. There was a couple of modern sports bikes there, but the Mike Harwood was definitely the best sports bike there. But the best bike, in my opinion, was restored by a young girl named Shay, who restored her dad's Honda, and she won Best Small Bike, and she restored that as a school project. So Well done, Shay. We should try and get you on the channel at some point.
Yes, please.
So back to the BMW S1000XR. It's definitely a bike that I would buy if I was after a sports tourer.
Yeah.
I found it just a little bit top heavy. My only concern would be keeping enough points on my license because the bike is a little bit eager. All up, I loved it, and I'm going to give it an 8. We are really spoilt for choice when it comes to long distance sports tourers, and this playlist up here has some of the best in the category.